If you need the water, check the beaches in the Carolinas. If you need the mountains, try the Appalachian Trail. If you need the redwood trees, gotta go to Yosemite. If you need me, 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 I'll be in Kansas City.
Welcome to Kansas City Limits Radio. We're here in the studio today with Drew Six, and we're going to learn all about his story, his music, and what he's trying to do with it, and how he is a true original artist. But before we get into all those kind of questions and all those kind of internal wheels that make his wheels spin, we're going to thank our sponsors. And we want to start with Kansas City RVs. You can lease, consign, or purchase. Go camping. We want to thank Soundworks Recording Studio in Blue Springs. These folks will record anything you need, anytime. The BBPA, the Briarcliff Business Partner Alliance, a networking group raising money for charity, focused and passionate about business. And Briarfest 8, a free-to-attend music festival, September 8th and 9th at Mackin Park in North Kansas City. We want to thank Black Moon Media, our producing TV sponsor that you see produce our Kansas City Limits TV show. And you can find the Kansas City Limits TV show at YouTube, Kansas City Limits TV. And now we also want to, I almost left out somebody here, S&S Printing. And thank you so much, S&S Printing, for all the things you've done with us and for us. And now I want to turn it over to my co-host, Mr. J.E. Cornwell.
Nicely done, Robert. Welcome, Drew. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start out by saying it was not an easy task getting you. You're a busy guy.
He's on the move.
But I would say that there were some other folks that were involved in getting this deal done. One was my friend, Connie Smith,
Yes.
who you know, Connie,
Yes.
and the other, Mindy Hart.
Yes.
Both of them.
Both great people.
Had contacted me on several occasions about getting Drew Six on and doing something with Kansas City Limits. And
you can't do that with AI. You need real people that believe
indeed
in you.
That have hands.
They both
Yes.
love you, and they were both
thank you.
pushing for you. And
Mindy and Connie, thank
you and
you.
I went back and forth a long time to try to make this happen because, you know, you're a busy guy. And but again, thank you very much for being on the show.
Oh, I think this is so cool and great for Kansas City. Kansas City just keeps growing and getting better and better. Helps we have a great football team.
Indeed.
Yes,
But
yes.
I'm glad
We
to be a
love
part of
Patrick.
this. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Well, I'm going to jump right in. You know, we do a little Q&A with everybody. We send out these forms, and you so graciously put yours together nice and neat and
Inconsistent print.
Yeah.
I spell
Yeah.
checked. I just spell
PDF
checked
form.
it.
Yeah.
He's done it all. The
I have
teacher's been doing
Grammarly
it.
too
Yeah,
on my laptop.
Very well
Oh,
done.
dang
Yes.
it! We thought you did it all by yourself.
Yeah. But your first one, which I thought was interesting in the fact that it was the first question, but you get right into the nuts and bolts of being a musician. And you put in here, you know, the effect of a musician or a, you know, singer-songwriter that is, you know, finding the time to get their music, get it out into the world and being received. Great topic. Why don't you touch on that?
Getting the music out there. I think that all of us, no matter what you do, you kind of take for granted what you do because it becomes your job, your career. But one of the cool things about music is that it brings people together from all walks of life. And that's to me, that's the gift of it. The people that I meet that I would have never met, people that I've touched and have touched me in turn. So getting it out there is doing it. It's the process and creating and thankfully this is about songwriting too. And that's a big part about creating something out of outer space that never existed before and connecting to people is the coolest thing ever. So sometimes you do take it for granted because it's a job, but getting it out there is the reason that you really have a passion for it because you connect with people and you move people and you start to realize, like, I'm a fan first, so I realize what they're experiencing. But when you're doing it, sometimes it gets lost on you a little bit.
How long you been a full-time musician?
Longer than I'd like to mention. Over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
Yeah, with no other jobs.
And would you say it's relevant that you get better every time? Or do you think you've maxed out? Do you think you?
No. So here's I got an analogy for that. I do not golf.
Okay.
And I used to kind of behind the scenes kind of make fun of golf guys and things like that, just because they would come into the bars when I was playing and do their golf swing and practice. Now I have tons of close friends that golf, and they're very serious about it. And they tell me that no matter how good you are, you go out and you can be terrible one day, and then the next week you're great. Whatever. Music is the same way.
I see.
But it's a process where yes, I think you get better, but I don't think if you're good and you stay there, you don't move forward. You need those challenges. You need to be bad to get better.
Right. You got to fall down and get back up. And when you get up, you're like, man, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. In anything, people stay in their comfort zone. And that is a gift too. When you're creating is like, take some risks, be authentic to who you are, but evolve.
Yeah. Don't be cumbersome.
Yeah.
You know, there's more for you.
Yeah.
And go get it. You know, leading by example was something that was important to you for us to discuss. And, you know, when I read these questions, I don't try to, be Dr. Robert here and figure out anything, but usually someone that wants to be a great example to someone else either's had a great example they're trying to mimic, or maybe had a lack of an example that they're trying to not have take place with someone else.
Yeah.
And again, maybe tell me if I'm on the right path here. Tell me why that's so important to you.
Okay, so are you talking about family and parenthood?
Yeah.
Well, I think luckily I figured out early that family was important. And my parents were great. They didn't push me in one direction or another direction, but they did not stifle. I have one sister who's also does music. She lives in Austin.
Cool.
And that was the biggest thing, is they let us pursue what we loved. They just didn't get in the way of it. And my mom was an artist at Hallmark, retired. And so I actually drew pictures first. That was my thing. I was a visual artist, and my daughter has picked up on that a little bit. But I realized rather early on that girls responded to a guitar way more than a picture. So I quickly moved over to music, and I was shy. I mean, and I think a lot of artists are, and I think a lot of great front people in bands that are performers are shy, and that's where they get that out. And then over time, especially as an independent musician, when I don't have a bunch of people representing me, I had to learn how to get out there and network and handle the business side. But that was more learned. It wasn't necessarily natural. But until you have a child, even though family was important to me, and that was part of my vision as part of the goals that I wrote down that I wanted to happen, I always said, I'd be fine with being on tour constantly. That's what I was chasing. And then you hold a child in your hands for the first time. Right. It changes everything.
Totally.
But what I also want to say is some people choose one or the other. And I feel like I would be a bad example to my daughter if I did not pursue what I love, because I want her to know that anything is possible.
Right on.
And whatever your passion is, that's the way you should go. And if I completely gave up on that, I would not be the best version of me for her and my wife.
Man, well said.
That is nicely done.
Being truthful to yourself. If you're just now joining us here on Kansas City Limits Radio, we're with Drew Six, talking a little bit about him, his story, and his music. And it's been great to that. It's important not only to, you have a family component that you're trying to adhere to make sure you're a good example, but people in general. Other artists, other people trying to carve out their own sound, everybody learns from someone else. I had an interview one time with somebody, and they asked me, they go, what do you think your best skill is? And I said, I didn't know anything more than I knew about this job until you started telling me about it. And so my goal is to listen to what's going on with your job. It's kind of like with your music. You don't know what I'm going to play, but I'm hoping you'll hear me out so I can get the song to your soul, because you wrote it for somebody.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the songwriting process in itself is difficult. We ask this question to most of the people here on the show. I thought your your answer to this was interesting. On some of the songwriting that you do is based on some of the charity work that you do, some of the organizations you represent and things. Go ahead and give us a little info on that.
Yeah, so a couple of big organizations I work with is Variety Children's Charity and the Dream Factory. And both of them have songs now that I've written. And there's a certain challenge to that because those are unique situations. And the first time I went through this was with Variety Children's Charity, which they bridge the gap.
Is that at Kansas City?
Yeah. So this was the Kansas City chapter, and DreamWorks actually uses the song nationwide. So move forward in that. But the Variety, Deb, who heads up Variety, I mean, they do some amazing things. But if you don't know about Variety, it's for special needs kids, and they kind of bridge the gap with insurance companies and things that they won't cover, equipment, mobility equipment, essentially. And they are the ones that put the awesome playground in the new airport.
They make it all inclusive.
Yes.
So anyone handicapped can get in and out of the slides, get in and out of the entrances inside the playgrounds. They're wide enough for walkers. It just, so everyone's welcomed.
Yeah. And so when they approached me, they wanted me to sing a song with a girl. Was Pride of Variety, and I was kind of, I was like, what song do you want me to do? And they said, well, you can choose. So I said, I definitely want to write something. But it was one of the more challenging songs I've ever written, because the way I looked at it is people look at me and they're like, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know what this is like? But then I realized our responsibility as artists is to interpret that. I mean, that's the gift, is to articulate it, with melody and lyrics so people feel it, the thing
Great
that they want to express, and that's what's so beautiful about music. And I worked on it. And so I got letters from the parents. I talked to the parents. I talked to the kids. And it went on. And we had a performance at Midland. So it was like a lot of pressure because I'm like, we got to get this done. We got to play the song. And I wrote another song. Like, I was in Mexico on a vacation, and I came up with, like, I would go off on tangents. Sometimes I write my best songs when it's like procrastination. I was like, oh, let me write this instead.
Right.
But it all came together really with the kids when I realized they wanted to be treated like everyone else. And I think growing up, they teach you, don't stare at that person that's different.
Sure.
Don't look. And so then what do? We don't even acknowledge them.
Yeah.
Yes. And all they want to do is be treated like everyone else. And when I start talking to all of the kids, it's like, they're just like me. They're chasing their dreams. And that's been a big theme in the songs that I write, because that's like a North Star, hope and dreams. And once I figured that out, I'm like, I'm writing my story. It's the same thing. It's like, they don't want people to tell them they can't do something. And every artist that does what I do has experienced that, because you get that pat on the head. Oh, go ahead, try your little hobby.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And we don't need permission to chase our dreams. And that's what these songs are about. And then when Dream Factory came along, I knew the vice president of the local chapter.
Well, what was your connect with these? I mean, both these organizations. Had
You just reached out to them, or they?
No, I didn't pursue them. So Deb, who heads up Variety in Kansas City, had hired me to do some of their charity events. Actually, she didn't hire me. It's a volunteer primarily situation. So I did that.
Gotcha.
Because I believed in it. But she approached me. And so I had done shows for her. So that's where that started. And Dream Factory is completely volunteer driven, which to me is an amazing thing, because all these people are coming and just donating their time. But that happened because Bob Pennington, he was the vice president of the local chapter, he takes pictures of musicians around town. And so that was my connect. And he said, he kind of wanted to use the song that I wrote for Variety, because it was a dream song. It was like a perfect We Are the Dreamers kind of thing. And I said, no, I really want to write something for this. And then there was a deadline coming up. He goes, it had been like maybe 2 years. And I remember I went home and I spent like 8 hours straight. I might have taken lunch and that was it. And I could come up with nothing. But I had this hook in my mind, dreams do. And so when I introduce that song, I always say, dreams don't just dream, dreams do. You have to take action. And I believe all these songs kind of have the element of struggle and the dark side, which we all have as artists. But I accentuate the positive, the hope. So it's a fight song. And ultimately, like I said, a North Star for the dreamers.
Nice.
And so that's kind of how that happened. And then they're based out of Louisville, actually, Dream Factory. So they utilize that song.
I've worked
for all
with them
the chapters.
before. Yeah. Good organization.
Well, and probably like you were talking to people you meet from those organizations. Well, they're a fan of yours because you're helping them out. It's a two-way love street there.
Yeah, they're pretty honest though, so you have to kind of win them over.
Sure.
These are kids. Kids will keep you honest. So
you're talking about the kids. Says yes.
Yeah, well, but that's mostly what you're doing. So my daughter's 5, and it's like she's not impressed.
She'll shut you down. Does she shut you down?
So she is. We did a music video to the Dreams Do song,
right.
And I put her in the video,
right.
And they had to give her chocolate to get. And she's very affectionate.
Right.
She would kiss me normally, but she doesn't like people telling her what to do. The director's like kiss him and do this, and she's like, give her chocolate, and she did it. So
there's a nice bribe.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Talk a little bit about the importance, before we got on to recording, we talked about, names and album covers and things. I listened to some of your music yesterday and today, and you got some good hooks. You got a great voice, and the timing of it, it makes you want to tap your foot and listen to it. But tell us a little bit about, in a sea of musicians, in a world full of ears, how do you find your crowd? What have you done to separate yourself? And what are you getting ready to do to really make yourself this Drew Six project? And by the way, you can find him at drew6.com.
Thanks.
Lots of information there about him and his story. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, I think it comes down to self-awareness, and everybody's different when they kind of find that. And that's kind of wisdom too. For me, I love so many different genres of music that I always wanted to bring everything in, and that's not always the best business plan. I've found that as I become more focused, I've found more success, which is any business. But it's difficult. It's difficult for anyone, but artists, I think, are especially scattered.
They're dreamers, man.
Yeah. You're looking at everything. So I like to think, like, in recent times, I've narrowed things down a bit. But back to the original question, it's about being authentic. And people hear my stuff, and I live an indie musician life, but when you hear my music, it's very commercial. And sometimes that's not the critic's favorite thing. And
is that on purpose? Is that what you're trying to do?
That's who I am.
That's what you're making.
I'm getting at. That's authentic to who I am. That's what I grew up on. I love pop music. It's just there. And as I've honed it in, I think it's been a gift because it's given me a unique take on some of this more Americana country stuff, because I'm always going to have that big melody chorus. And here's why it's truly a gift. If you're an indie musician playing all sizes of venues, I think my situation is very unique in that I play a lot of originals in gigs that all of us want, that are typically covered.
Multi-sounds.
Yeah, so
genres of music.
Because the kind of stuff that I write, I can play the crowd pleaser where everyone's dancing, and I can play my next one that I wrote and people are still on the dance floor and they don't leave.
Sure.
So the clubs are like, well, as long as I'm bringing people in. And a big part of that, I mean, I'm a businessman and I get the branding side, and that's a part of it too, is people understand my brand. And it drives me nuts when people are booking a musician. It's like a car. Everybody has a different brand they like, and not everybody's the right fit. But
sure,
all of us, we're not just musicians. We're a brand. We're an authentic person, and we're out there to connect. And that's the reason to hire us, because you want this particular specific thing.
I find that your ability to play in all these different types of venues, sizes, and whatever it is. I mean, I follow you. I know you've been at Guitars and Cadillacs. It's a good size stage. I've seen you in the corner of a bar at a little joint. Hell, I just recently saw, actually Connie shared it with me.
Connie.
You were out front just playing by yourself, your guitar and your amp, and which I think is now becoming a thing. I saw ZZ Top Gibbons, who was out, I think they were in or what? He was in Finland, right? Just him, his guitar, and an amp, and he's out on the street playing.
Well, I'm a huge Billy F. Gibbons fan.
I mean, who isn't, right? But I mean, to hear that
That's
guitar,
cool.
if you're walking around in
Helsinki,
Helsinki, I think is where it was. But so my point was that you're you're not shy of playing any venue, right? I mean, you're going to take a gig just because you want to get out and play some music and let the people hear you, right?
Yeah, well, it's not just that; it's a business. So there are compromises, but I do what I love, and I don't take that for granted. And this kind of relates to what you guys were asking me earlier. I was talking Billy F. Gibbons playing on a street corner. There's that thing out where the classical musicians playing that $1 million violin, and everyone's just walking by in the subway, and you have to find the people that appreciate you. You're not going to find them every night.
No.
But you got to dig.
Yeah.
You got to work.
Good
And
answer.
you have to be authentic, because that's what they're going to respond to. Because there's millions of artists, there's millions of singers. You have to be you. Everyone else is taken, you know?
Absolutely.
Love
Robert, I
it.
know
Love it.
you've got, I had number 5 on here circled, but I know you're biting at the bit to ask
Chomp,
that.
chomp,
so
chomp.
I'm going to let you attack that.
You know, we have a commonality. You don't know. I'm a singer-songwriter. I love music. I wake up thinking about songs. They consume my thoughts. That's part of why J.E. has me underneath a spell with this TV show and the radio show. But I will tell you that, creating songs, there's multiple different angles. And I ask the same question with all of the artists that we get a chance to meet. You know, inspiration of music. There are some artists that know every song ever created on both sides of every album. And they can play them at a moment's notice. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to whistle you a tune and I want you to create an original song to it. And they will stumble for weeks trying to figure it out. And then you meet the other guy. They know the song, whatever you're thinking before you even said it, and they give you that perfect bit of music. So are you lyrically inspired, or are you musically inspired, or are you emotionally inspired to create your projects?
Well,
Wow.
I
That's
think
a question.
that is a lot.
I'm sorry. I tried to let it salt.
The first part wasn't me. I can't just play stuff. I mean, I have a million influences, but I'm not a schooled musician.
Okay.
I feel things.
You have to feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did theme park work where we did these intricate harmonies and stuff. And I had to have like training on the side, because I got the job because I'm a good performer.
Sure.
And a singer, but I don't hear harmonies naturally. I did take guitar lessons in grade school, and it didn't take, because it's actually very mathematical. And
From
I'm
Walt?
Very right. Yeah, no. And I'm very right brain creative. I just wanted to be a rock star. That's part of it too, the
I see.
impatience of it. Lead me back to the original question.
So do you hear a song in your head musically,
Yes.
like with the instrument, or do you like maybe sing some words and go, man, that's got a good rhyme? I mean,
Yeah, so I have the marketing element there. And that I always say, if I have a really good hook, it would look good on a t-shirt.
right?
And most of my songs, like if you look at my website, a lot of my songs have a t-shirt. Not my problem. Dreams do. Stuff that you can get quick. But it's different every time. If I have an idea, and interestingly now I have like my golf buddies, they think they're songwriters. So if you're out having a drink with them, I got this great idea for a song. I'm like, and they're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to give you a cut on this. I said, the hard part is you actually have to sit down and write it.
I need a structure. I need something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But Nashville definitely changed me, because I always had like the concepts, the melodies. And once I started going there, I learned the craft a lot more. And man, the bar is so high there. And they sit there for 8 hours a day writing every day. And that's not what I do still.
Sure. Let's talk about that for a second. You know, the difference. There's so many cities that provide great music on this wonderful country of ours. But, you know, there's places you go and I'm the music capital, I'm the music capital, I'm the music capital. We had earlier a segregated jazz and blues and rhythm and blues influence here in Kansas City, during a time where segregation and that's those people's music and such was really kind of the dialogue of the early 30s, 40s, and 50s. At the same time, we have a geographical point of music explosion taking off with, the Moms and Pops, the Carters, Elvis Presley, Waylon Jennings, on and on, all in the Nashville. So there's a huge amount of history that's promoted and a huge amount of history that's uplifted that grew up in that region. And I think the history of it gave them the promenade of being we were the first. We were the first that get, that attention and that music of country and that part of the country. Do you think that there is a correlation between, why isn't Kansas City known as a music city? when we've had just as early as a start as another city. And, same thing with Austin. So, so you bounce around. So you going to Nashville, they're so proud of their music.
Right.
It is their tourism button.
Yes, yeah.
All the labels are there. They're looking for it. And there's a line of people there daily trying to get gigs. So how long did it take before you landed a gig there in Nashville? And do you think it was because of connection or talent?
So everyone calls every town a 10-year town, but I did LA, I did New York, and I really was, I had my family listened to growing up like Motown. So I had that element, but then I had Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
And John Denver. My mom loved John Denver.
Yeah.
So I had all these weird elements, but I think I like the soul side of what I do. That's where I got that. But I ended up being this rock guy. And pretty early on, people were like, you should go to Nashville. You should go to Nashville because, it's becoming a little more rock and roll.
Right.
And I think one of the good things is genre is kind of dead now.
Sure.
It's
It's all in the same cup.
Yeah, well, with streaming and everything, and I'm an optimist. So if you ask me all these questions about AI, streaming, and how terrible it is, I'm going to tell you the good side of it because I believe that makes us as creators adapt and move forward, and you have to too. So I think that's a good thing. I think you want to be, like I said before, you don't want to be in your comfort zone. You want to be challenged to move forward. But Kansas City, I mean, definitely we have the jazz and blues background. Nashville claimed that, and I mean, they all the country music came from there. But there's a definite system.
Do you feel
there.
we're in a musical renaissance right now with Kansas City in this area? What's going on with musicians?
I hope so. I was read an article the other day, which was dated, but it was Bob Walkenhurst talking about when he started, they would play, and that was a trend back then, like 4 or 5 days in Kansas City, and that doesn't happen really right now.
No.
And then, like you mentioned, Guitars and Cadillacs earlier, those are the original owners, so it's kind of cool working for them. And we kind of dabbled in doing double nights, and then we went back to single nights. It's just interesting to see these trends. And I always say, like, it has gotten better because I've been doing this full time for a long time. This is a restaurant town, and it is terrible in the winter because people hide in their homes, and I still have to make a living,
Sure.
So you're scrambling for gigs, and I told you I've been doing this for a long time, and every January, February, I'm like, oh man, I'm going bankrupt.
I'm gonna gain 10 pounds and lose all my money.
Nothing's gonna happen. But working for restaurant people, they don't necessarily understand the entertainment industry.
Sure.
That's right.
And
you're to sell drinks.
Yeah. And then you've got casinos who have a budget, and kind of it trickles down from bigger markets that did understand that this is your entertainment. So there's a certain way of doing things. And we've had our growing pains, but I feel like we're moving forward. It's just like, I love Kansas City. I'm proud of being here. And I have openly said sometimes that I get better treatment in Nashville, which is weird.
Right.
Because more people know me here. But there they sort of understand that anyone that walks in might have written the biggest hit they've ever heard.
Sure.
Or might be this musician or this, because it's there. But so I love that, being there and being among that creative energy. What I don't love is that everybody does what I do. The table next to me is a musician.
Right.
It's like LA, everybody's an actor. So
Yeah.
I kind of like standing out a little more in KC.
Sure.
So I don't know if we are going through a renaissance, but I'm very hopeful with all the things that are happening as we're growing as a city. And we'll hit that point. Like Nashville, I've been going there long enough that it literally, it used to go 2 to 3 weeks and it was unrecognizable. It's like cranes and,
Sure.
And I think maybe Kansas City could be, I see a lot of parking garages going up. So we'll see.
People love music, and there's a lot of people coming here. And our great airport we just got built. I really think it's going to turn the tides for shows. There's a lot of national shows coming through, and that's good for just the buzz about where Kansas City. Let's go, and then they'll find other artists like yourself playing at that bar or on that stage and such.
There's definitely a community here.
Well,
and that you guys, that's what's really important about this. This is part of this music community, and that's how you know who to trust and who's good. And I felt like COVID, one of the things that happened during COVID is there was maybe some artists that never even played a gig and they got gigs. And it really just changed things in a weird way. but it got me out of my comfort zone, you know, and I do a lot of corporate gigs too. And so those people would literally have to sneak me in their backyard because they couldn't do it due to liability and everything else. And it would be like prohibition, you know, you're sneaking in and playing live music. And I love playing those private parties.
It was good and bad. I mean, you know, the good was that, yes, we came out of COVID in a time where, you know, everybody was just so sick and tired of sitting at home and not being able to go out and see music. I mean, we were going to driveways and we were going to backyards and we were doing things that, you know,
alleys.
Yeah.
But the bad part of that, though, was I think really, you know, at that time,
People died.
the bands wanted to play so much. The musicians wanted to get out and play, and they were taking gigs that, or they were new bands that never. So the bar got lowered a whole lot on what the bands were getting paid, and the venues that got away with that, you know, I snub at this point now. I mean, I'm not going to say when we came out of COVID, I didn't go to every little place I could. I did. But now I don't think that just moving a couple of four tops and saying, here, that's where you're going to be tonight, and you're not going to fucking turn off the monitor, sometimes don't even turn off the house music. That place doesn't get the respect that it needs from this industry and shouldn't.
Yeah.
And that the fact is they're going to, you know, try to get a guy in there and pay him $50 or $100 to spend 3 hours of his time. That's bullshit. So,
well, and that's not what you're paying for. And I would say this to any young musician that approaches me: you're paying for a lifetime of skill. That's a job. If you're paying, a job is when you're paying someone to spend their time to do something for you. You know, something you don't. It's a pain point for you. You're giving them money to do that.
10,000 hours, you're an expert. So I mean,
yeah. So that's what you're paying for.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many people are in the band. It matters what you're getting. You know, the entertainment value of that and how it's connecting. And it's not, every venue's different.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And
not everybody's a great
it
fit
hasn't
for
stabilized yet,
Yeah.
but it's got to the point now, I think, that some of those bands have either fallen to the wayside or moved on. Some of those venues also have fallen to the wayside. I mean, they're like, they could probably make more money doing what they do, you know, turning that four top, right?
Yeah.
So, and I can see that, but coming out of COVID, it was interesting to the point where that bar got lowered a great deal. And our job here and what we do to promote local live music in this town is to raise that bar, because I think the musicians in this town that grind out, that are in bands, that do this for a living or do this as a second job, they deserve it.
or just to save their soul. You know, I mean,
Well, like Robert, yeah.
I mean, that's really, I mean, without music, I'd be in a basket or a therapist somewhere.
Dead, OD'd.
OD'd, something. Let's talk a little bit about the music industry and where it's going. You said something here a little bit before we got started about how you put together some sounds with people you had never met before they showed up to the stage, and you did that through the technologies, obviously. And one of the things that you said that was really awesome was that it allowed you to have opportunity to meet and interact with some musicians, maybe not on a hey, hello, face-to-face situation, but someone really well appointed for your sound and your music. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of this is a Nashville thing that, like, going back to like the bar being so high and the kind of musicians you can find, this happens a lot there, but it's probably in all the time the years I've done this, the last couple of years, where I will go on stage and someone I've never met face to face, maybe never talked to. It might be a text, but it's always, here's the human element. Someone who I trust very much because we have rapport that we built over the years, and they're like, this person will be good for you. And they'll come on stage and they'll just know all their parts.
You want to
they'll
mention
nail
their
it.
name, your
No.
person you trust?
Oh, well, no, I don't really have anyone I want to
Okay, you
endorse today.
Okay, then.
There's a handful of them, but yeah, I mean,
No,
Or leave out,
too many
yeah.
to mention. Too many to mention.
no, there's not too many mentioned. It's a small circle, but there's people I know that would tell me someone's great and I wouldn't listen. That's why I
Okay.
want to keep both of them out of this. Okay?
I see.
And I don't want to play favorites. But,
Sure.
But I know if I'm like, someone tells me someone's good, you know, if I can trust them or not. And that's cool. And technology is part of it, because you can send them a Dropbox of your files and everything, and they can check everything out. And that pushed me out of my comfort zone too. And now I'm a little more comfortable with it. So when I go to Nashville, I hardly ever take my band. If I'm playing a show, I'll have hired guys, but a lot of those are touring guys that just have time off or whatever.
Right.
But I have a core of people who I love and trust here that I like to work with. They're not always available because we're all working. And you know, and the COVID thing, it's like when everything reopened, we were all overbooked.
Right.
And that includes, you know, the sound techs and everybody. Yeah. So we had to kind of navigate that. And I felt like last year, more so than this year, everyone's like, we better book early.
Right.
You know, having done this for a long time, it's like, wow, my whole calendar's filling up. And then this year, it started off a little slow because they weren't thinking in the same way. It's unfortunate that it takes tragedy, for lack of a better term, for people to appreciate things.
Sure.
And I'm a fan first, so I miss going to concerts as much as anything else.
Yeah, me too.
And thankfully, I'm working so much I haven't been able to go. The only thing I've got to see this summer is Bluey, if you know what that is. It's a cartoon because my daughter's 5. So I went to the Kaufman Center and it's puppets. It was very well done, but it wouldn't have been my first choice for a concert. But the joy on your child's face is worth more than any other.
I was getting ready to ask what genre that was.
It's an Australian cartoon.
Oh, I see.
Disney streams it, but the lead guy that plays their dogs.
I see.
Is a singer, from what I understand. So that
That's
makes me like
funny.
it more.
That's
And
cool.
that there's a little bit of an adult element to it. Like, so when you watch it, you appreciate it. There's like a moral
I'm
to the story.
familiar with it. I just don't know a lot about it. I have grandchildren, so
Well, and I've heard
Bluey is a thing.
that they did it in colors that dogs could see because dogs don't see the full color spectrum. Now, I don't know if that's true because as
Nope.
time goes on,
yeah.
you cannot believe everything you see on the internet. I know.
Everything
it's
they
hard for
put on the news.
No, that's shocking.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I want this one was near and dear to my heart, and I love that you put this on here. But why do you think music and performing live music is so important?
Well, I kind of touched on this earlier, and I think the longer you do it, sometimes it gets a bit lost on you. But like I said, I'm a fan first. So for me, just going to a concert's like church. It's a spiritual experience for me, and I think it is for other people too, whether they comprehend it or admit it or whatever that might be. But just the gift now with the self-awareness that I have, more than playing the music, it's just like I'm buddies with CEOs of major corporations and, you know, someone that works the smallest job, and I love them all, but I would never meet these people. I mean, that is true wealth. It is. It's you're filling your soul cup to meet these people and to move people and to connect with people. And for someone that intrinsically is shy, for me to have that experience, because had I never done music, I probably would have just stayed shy.
What would what do you think you would have? What do you want to be when you were a kid?
Well, I told you I was a visual artist first.
So you would have been maybe a graphic artist kind of guy. You think?
You know what? Any independent musician, most of the ones that you will probably talk to in this setting will tell you have to do all those things.
Sure.
So I redesigned my home office and studio, and I listed everything that it is. And it made me think about it. It's a recording studio. It's a graphic design suite. It's a fashion place. It's a photography studio. It's admin, which I hate. Taxes. It's like all has to happen there.
Numbers
But
again.
nowadays you have to do, and back in the day you had a fan club president,
Sure.
you know, and that doesn't exist anymore. You have, and that's hard for artists. It's hard for them to be a fan club president because they want to play music, but that's a big part of it. Unless you just want to play coffee houses and not, I mean, to each their own. You know?
It's a lot, you know, and that kind of knocks out something, you know, that was on here for us to talk about. It was like, you know, what are your traits? And to really go after it, you got to have all those traits you just mentioned, you know. And the other thing too that's important is you got to know what you suck at.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
well, you got to know your limitations, because it's silly to think you're perfect at everything. Delegate, hand it off to someone that's better than you, and then look at them and go, I need your help with this because I can't figure this part out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important in any situation,
Totally.
Any business. But sometimes it's just harder for artists to figure that out, you know. And I, admittedly, one of my weaknesses is I like control of everything, you know. So it's difficult for me to delegate and to trust people And a lot of times you do that and they don't live up to your
That
expectations.
goes hand in hand with being creative, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey,
Yeah.
just wanted to let everybody know again, we have today on the big show Drew Six. Drew Six, singer-songwriter here in Kansas City. You can find Drew, his website, drew6.com. You can find him on Instagram at Drew6 and Facebook, Drew6 Music, and also a YouTube page at Drew6. That makes it very simple for people to find you.
They're almost all at Drew Six. My personal
And
Facebook's just Drew Six, but the other one's Drew Six Music.
And that is
Drew Six
spelled.
Music.
That is spelled out. The word
Oh, yes,
6,
SIX.
not just the numericals. So-
Sometimes people write me a check with the number 6, and I have to like scribble through it and figure.
Say no, that's not six.
Dang it! Why
Yeah.
didn't I do that? 6 looks like an at sign. Just my final question here. I wanted to share with you. What drives you to want to be this full-time musician? What's the real deal? Because there's multiple reasons. You mentioned when you write your music, you're writing a lot of it that match, kind of your commercial aspirations. But what's the real driving factor behind you being a musician?
I think everybody needs the reason why, and I think it's okay if that changes over time. And I think you and I have in common, we need that. I saw a thing where, and you may have seen this clip where John Mellencamp was talking to Stephen King, and they were talking about being hypochondriacs. Like Mellencamp was like, "Why are we sick? Why are we?" And Stephen King told him, because I'm obviously paraphrasing, because we're creators. So if we're not creating, we start creating problems for ourselves. We're sick. So I think people that really, really do it's not a want, it's a need.
Well said.
Yeah.
And there's so many ups and downs, like hard times, but
Man.
I'm happiest when I'm creating. So I have this in my studio, and it was many, many years ago. Someone put something in my tip jar, and they wrote on the dollar "create," and I put that on the wall because that's really, to me, what it comes down to. But back to the reason why, it's like I understand now, like how important my daughter is, so I won't compromise that. But I mentioned earlier, I don't think it does her any service for me to say, well, everything's about you and I'm going to give up this whole music thing, which happens sometimes.
Sure.
And I think that's unfortunate because
our last artist, Deanne, gave it up for several years,
Yeah.
raising family and jumped back into it. So,
yeah. And but it's a challenge because there's the financial aspect and everything else. But I feel most alive when that's what I'm doing, and that's what I want her to experience. So that's a big part of my reason why. And I just want to feel like I evolve. Like all the artists that I truly love have longevity, and I don't think that's important to everybody. Some artists want to have their big break, and then maybe they're fine with moving on. And maybe subconsciously that's been part of my progression because I was chasing the big record deal literally when I was a teenager, and I had big meetings in Los Angeles and I was, I don't know, under 18.
Right.
And chasing the deal and that kind of thing. So I think you have to enjoy the process, otherwise you stop. But anything that you do, you have to love it so much or you'd quit. It's just too hard. And the music industry is so hard. But I think part of that's wisdom, that you realize the process is important, and gratitude where you are, because the more grateful you are, the more positive energy you attract back into your life.
Well, it changes over time. I mean, you deal with what you have. I mean, longevity, as you mentioned, it's not easy in any career. I don't care how what you're doing, but I think in music, especially, touring bands, bands that play a lot of gigs throughout the year. I mean, you'd mentioned Bob Walkenhorst, and some of the guys I respect in this town that are still playing music. Because I was following these guys back around in the early '80s when there was just Steve, Bob, and Rich, and Jimmy and David Nace, and these guys, 4 decades of doing that. Certainly, they've both been on labels. They've both been the highs, and now, but you look at them now, they play music because they like to play music. Right. And sometimes they've got big crowds in front of them. Sometimes they don't. It doesn't really matter. So when it comes to appreciating music and in a longevity period, I think I mean, I'm going to go listen to a band that I know that has been around a lot longer than, if I had the choice, if I've got a bunch of, which most of the time I do, I've got all these invites to go see bands play. And so I pick and choose. But anyway, listen, that was well said. Robert, are you ready? Take us out.
Thanks for listening to Kansas City Limits Radio. Check out Drew Six. Remember, be good to yourself, be good to others, be good to musicians. We'll see you, and we'll talk to you at the next Kansas City Limits Radio.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm Drew Six. I'm going to start off with this one. You can get this one on streaming. It's kind of about getting tangled up with someone you shouldn't get tangled up with, but there are good parts that keep you coming back for more. And, you might not admit it to other people, but that person's going to leave an impression for a long time. It's called Leave a Mark. There's a candle flame dancing in a pool of wax, a lipstick tattoo on a martini glass, little pieces of you that stay behind when you go. There's nothing I can do to keep you here. I know you're gonna leave a mark, and I can't erase. You cut through me like a razor blade. You're gonna light me up, then burn me down like a wildfire through a prairie town. You're gonna leave a mark. Oh, there's an empty impression on your side of the bed. There's a hole punched in my heart where I let you in. And don't you know that I'm bruised from the hold you've been keeping on me? I'm finding that you are everything I want and nothing that I need. You're gonna leave a mark. Well, I can't erase. You cut through me like a razor blade. You're gonna light me up, then burn me down like a wildfire through a prairie town. You're gonna leave a mark. Oh, and I can't tame your restless soul. I know I should move on, but when I tried, you scratch my chest, you bite my lip. Remind me what I'm gonna miss. You're gonna leave a mark, and I won't be the same. You'll crash through me like a high-speed train. You're gonna light me up and burn me down like a wildfire through a prairie town. You're gonna leave a mark I can't erase. You cut through me like a razor blade. You're gonna light me up and burn me down like a wildfire through a prairie town. You're gonna You're gonna leave a mark. Thank you. All right. All right, so this next one is one that I have not put out yet, but I think it's going to be in the next couple of singles. And it's a lot about what we talked about today, about bringing people together in a time when we're way too divided. And I feel like, I know it's a gift to see people coming together, having drinks every night, and finding common ground through music and live music. It's so important. So, this particular song, there's definitely a Midwest background to this, and a farming background. And my dad worked on farms since he was 12, and he lost his dad when he was really young, like 14. So this is the only song. I'm sure he would like me to consult with him on more, but this is the only song I actually asked for his advice on songwriting, because I wanted to make sure I got it right, because kind of talking about the Midwest thing on the verses, and then I think the chorus is something everyone should relate to, pushing on through, working together. And we live in a really, we had a lot of problems. We got a lot of stuff to work on, but we live in a great place. We have the freedom to do what we do. And not every country could you write music and talk about whatever you felt like expressing, you know? So I call this one American Dreamers, and it goes like this. And I think it relates. This is not one of the charity songs I did, but it's definitely in line with what I believe in those North Star, hope, dream moments, and taking action, following your dreams. So it goes like this. Dreams. Oh, sorry. American Dreamer. I almost said Dreams Do, which check that one out too, will you? Drew6.com, and check out the music video and stream it. And this is American Dreamers. It'll be out soon. So follow me, get on the email list. We even have a text list now. So I'll text you and say it's coming out, right? We're sweating in the fields at daybreak, after tilling the soil all night, pushing through on faith and the promise of a better life. Well, last summer's drought stole the color from this land. We'll send up a prayer and put in the work with these same two calloused hands. We are the American Dreamers, and we are the don't stop believers. We rise and we fall, we get back up and we grind, grind, grind. We are the mountaintop seekers. When we swing for the bleachers. We don't give up, 'cause we all live for the climb. Whoa, American dreamers. The Union Bank raises up the flag over a hollowed out, boarded up Main Street drag. There's an old rusty park bench where folks used to sit and read the news in the local rag. This town is on the ropes, but don't dare count us out. We're gonna stand up tall and keep on punching, go another round. We are the American dreamers. We are the don't stop believers. We rise and we fall, get back up and we grind, grind, grind. We are the mountaintop seekers. When we swing for the bleachers. We don't give up, we all live for the climb. Whoa, American dreamers. We stand shoulder to shoulder, even when we don't see eye to eye. 'Cause brother, we know this eagle needs both wings if she's gonna fly. We are the American dreamers, and we are the don't stop believers. We rise and we fall, get back up and we grind, grind, grind. We are the mountaintop seekers. When we swing for the bleachers. We don't give up, 'cause we all live for the climb, climb, climb. Whoa, American dreamers. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.